The slap landed so hard it cut through the music like something snapping in half. My head snapped sideways, cheek burning, and for a full second I couldn't tell if the ringing was the speakers or my own body trying to process what had just happened. My sister was inches from my face, eyes wide and blazing, and her expression was not surprise. It was fury sitting on top of something else, something close to fear. "Are you blind?" she shouted. The way she said it. Sharp, disgusted, loud enough to carry across the whole backyard, made every conversation stop at once. I swallowed and tasted blood where I had bitten my lip. My voice came out thin when I tried to speak. My sister's mouth curled. "You just had to make tonight about you," she said. I looked down at what I had bumped, the tipped drink, the slid clutch purse, the small object that had come loose near my feet. Something slim and metallic, catching the string light overhead. "My name is Natalie Whitmore." And that was the night my sister said the quiet part out loud, because she believed no one would ever make her answer for it. My vision loss was not dramatic. It was quiet and relentless, the kind that sneaks into your life through small moments, a blur in a grocery aisle, a shadow that sits in the corner of your left eye no matter which way you turn, a depth that your brain refuses to calculate correctly on bad days. It started 6 months ago after a medical event that my doctors were careful and measured about, using words like partial and adjusting and manageable, which meant, your life is different now and there is no clean ending to this sentence. Some days I could drive. Some days I couldn't read a menu without tilting it under better light. Some days I smiled at dinner and no one in my family knew the difference. My sister Brooke treated those good days as evidence that I was exaggerating. "If you can wear heels," she said once, her voice breezy and dismissive, "you can stop acting like it's a disability." I was not acting. I was adapting. There is a wide and important distance between those two things, and Brooke had never once tried to cross it and understand. She hated anything that earned me sympathy she could not manage or redirect toward herself. The party was at our parents' family friend's house. A wide backyard in the kind of neighborhood where the lawns look professionally arranged and the outdoor furniture matches. Brooke had called me twice that week asking me to come. Not because she missed me or wanted my company. Because she needed people to see her being a good sister. I understood that. I went anyway, because my mother had called after Brooke and said, gently and carefully, it would mean a lot. Just show up and smile. My father had added, don't make it weird, Natalie. So I put on a simple dress. I did my hair. I planned to stand near the patio where the light was better for my eyes, keep my hands close to my sides, and stay small enough that nothing would go wrong. I knew my own limitations better than anyone. I navigated around them every single day without complaint, without asking for help I hadn't earned, without making it anyone's problem. I had gotten so good at disappearing into the background of my own life that I genuinely believed I could make it through one backyard party without my sister finding a reason to remind me what she thought of me. I was reaching for the back of a chair to steady myself, my balance tips on uneven ground, another thing I have learned to manage quietly, when the edge of my hand brushed the drink table. A plastic cup wobbled. I reached for it. I missed by half an inch because my depth perception on the left side is unreliable, and the cup tipped, and ice and soda splashed down onto the grass and onto the hem of Brooke's dress. Not much. A splash. Enough to leave a mark on pale fabric. Brooke's head snapped around like I had done it deliberately, like I had planned this moment and executed it with precision. Her eyes dropped from me to the table. To her clutch bag lying on its side. And then to the ground just beyond it, where something small had slipped out and landed in the grass near my feet. Something slim and metallic. It caught the string light overhead and winked. Brooke's face changed in a way I had never seen before. Not anger first. Fear. A fast, cold, specific fear that passed through her expression like a shadow before the fury rolled in behind it to cover it. Then her hand came up. Then the slap. My mother reached me before I had finished processing what happened. She grabbed my wrist. Not to comfort me, but to hold me still, to keep me from reacting in a way that would make the moment worse for everyone watching. "Natalie," she hissed, her voice low and urgent, "please don't do this here." I blinked at her. "Do what? Stand here with a burning cheek?" My father moved quickly to position himself between Brooke and the crowd of guests who had all gone quiet and were all staring. He laughed, a short, social laugh that sounded painful. "Everyone's had a long week," he said, like that explained anything. Brooke lifted her chin and looked around at the audience she had created. "She's been using this vision thing as an excuse for months," she announced, loud enough for the nearest cluster of guests to hear clearly. "She's not as limited as she makes people think." My cheek throbbed. My stomach turned over. And I watched several people in that crowd nod slightly, the way people nod when something they're hearing sounds plausible and they don't want to do the work of questioning it. Because Brooke was gifted at making cruelty sound like honesty. She always had been. A woman I had never met stepped closer to me. She was in her mid-30s, with steady eyes and the kind of calm that comes from someone who has seen something wrong before and decided not to pretend otherwise. "Are you okay?" she asked me quietly. I tried to answer but my throat had closed around the words. She looked at my face, at my cheek, at the way I was holding myself, and then she looked at Brooke with an expression that was not angry but was entirely clear about what it had observed. Brooke smiled at her. It was the smile Brooke used with strangers, the one that was warm and slightly apologetic, the one that said we're all adults here and my sister is a lot. "You don't understand how our family works," Brooke said pleasantly. "Natalie's always been a little dramatic." The woman looked back at me. She did not look at Brooke again when she spoke. "I understand what I just saw," she said, her voice even and matter-of-fact. "And what I saw was a slap." Then she glanced down at the grass near my feet. At the small object still lying there. Her eyes narrowed just slightly, and I saw the moment something registered in her expression. While the crowd was still shifting and murmuring and deciding how to behave, Brooke moved. I saw it from the corner of my right eye, which is my stronger side, a fast, fluid bend at the waist, her hand sweeping down to the grass. She picked up the small object and slipped it back into her clutch in one smooth motion that looked casual only if you were not watching for it. If you were watching for it, it looked exactly like what it was, practiced. Deliberate. A person removing evidence they had not meant to leave exposed. I kept staring at the spot where it had been, because my brain was still assembling the picture. Brooke was not afraid of a stained dress. She was not afraid of people seeing her lose her temper. She had made a public scene herself, which meant she was not worried about the slap. She was afraid of that object. Whatever it was, it mattered enough for her to slap her own sister in front of 40 people rather than risk anyone getting a clear look at it. That was not a reaction to a spilled drink. That was a person protecting something. Brooke found me near the side gate 20 minutes later, in a darker stretch of the yard where the string lights didn't reach. She came without the party smile. Her voice was low and controlled in the way that always meant she was working to keep something contained. "You're going to apologize," she said. I looked at her. "For what?" She exhaled like I was being deliberately stupid. "For embarrassing me. For spilling on my dress. For making people look." I touched my cheekbone with 2 fingers. The skin was tender and hot. "You hit me," I said, quietly. Brooke's eyes rolled up and came back down. "Stop," she said. "You're fine." "It wasn't," she waved her hand. "It wasn't anything." Then she stepped closer, close enough that her perfume crowded the air between us. "And whatever you think you saw on the ground," she said, her voice dropping even lower, "you didn't see it. You have vision problems. Everyone knows that." She held my gaze for a moment. Then she walked back toward the party. And I stood in the dark and understood that she was not just threatening me. She was already building the framework to discredit me. I got home that night and stood in the shower until the water went cold, trying to stop the shaking in my hands. When I got out and sat on the edge of my bed in the quiet, my phone buzzed with a message from a number I didn't recognize. It was short and careful. I was at the party tonight. I saw what your sister did. I think you should know. I also know what was in that clutch. I stared at the screen. Then I typed, "Who is this?" The reply came fast. "My name is Elaine. I'm a friend of Marlene's, she's the host. I noticed what fell out of your sister's bag. I noticed your sister pick it back up. And I think you need to know what I know before she gets ahead of it." My chest felt hollow. I had gone to that party planning to be invisible and cause absolutely nothing. Instead, I had stumbled into something my sister had been working to keep hidden, and now a stranger was reaching out in the dark to warn me. I typed, "Can we meet?" Elaine replied, "Tomorrow morning. I'll come to you." Elaine arrived at the coffee shop near my apartment the following afternoon. She was the woman from the party, the one with the steady eyes who had said she understood a slap. She sat across from me and folded her hands on the table and got to it without preamble. "Your sister is involved with someone," she said. "Someone she shouldn't be." I waited. "His name is Patrick," Elaine continued. "He's been attending Marlene's gatherings for about a year. Last night was the first time he and Brooke were in the same room with their families nearby." I frowned. "Brooke isn't seeing anyone seriously," I said. "That's what she's told everyone." Elaine's expression was careful and patient. "That's what she told your family," she said. "Patrick's wife was at the party last night. 2 tables over from where you were standing." My pulse jumped. Elaine turned her phone to show me a photo. Brooke near the patio, laughing, a man's hand resting at her waist with the ease of something long familiar. "Patrick has been telling people he's planning to leave his wife," Elaine said. "And Brooke has been telling certain people she's about to become a fiancé." My mouth went dry. And the small object on the grass suddenly made terrible sense. I told my mother about the slap the following morning, not the larger secret, just the basic fact of what had happened in front of 40 people. She listened with her hands folded in her lap and her eyes on a point past my shoulder, and when I finished she was quiet. "She didn't mean it the way it landed," my mother said. I let that sit. "She hit me," I said. "In front of people. Hard enough that my ears rang." My mother pressed her lips together. "Brooke is under a lot of stress," she said. "You know how she gets." I looked at her. "Do you hear yourself?" My father came in, caught enough of the conversation to understand the subject, and sat down with the expression he used when he wanted to seem reasonable while also closing a discussion. "Natalie," he said, "Brooke is your sister. You two need to sort this out privately." I nodded slowly. "She told the guests I was faking my condition," I said. My father said nothing. My mother reached over and patted my hand. And I understood, they were not going to say I was right. They were going to ask me to be quiet, because quiet was cheaper than truth. Brooke called that same night. Her voice came through the phone warm and slightly wounded, the tone she used after crossing a line, testing how much she needed to walk back. "Hey," she said. "Yesterday was intense and I feel bad about how things went." I stayed quiet. She filled the silence. "You know I love you," she said. "But you make things harder than they need to be. You bump into something and act like the world has to stop." My hands went tight around the phone. "Why did you scream that at me?" I asked. "In front of everyone." Brooke sighed. "I was startled," she said. "You scared me." Her voice shifted slightly, a small drop in warmth. "I also heard you've been talking to someone," she said. "I don't know who, but that needs to stop." Cold prickled at the back of my neck. I had not mentioned Elaine to anyone. "I don't know what you mean," I said. Brooke's voice dropped completely flat. "Be careful," she said. "People already think you get confused since everything happened with your vision." Then she hung up. I sat with the phone in my hands and understood, she was not warning me out of concern. She was telling me the campaign had already started. I did not plan revenge. What I did was quieter and more useful than that. I wrote everything down. The date of the party, the time, the sequence of events as I remembered them while it was still fresh. I described the slap, the object on the ground, Brooke's words near the gate, her phone call. I noted every witness I could identify by description even if I didn't know all the names. I took photographs of my cheek. The swelling had gone down by the next afternoon, but the photographs I had taken the night before, in the bathroom mirror under harsh light, showed exactly what had happened. My neurologist had told me early in my recovery that stress and emotional events could cloud my memory faster than usual, and that the best thing I could do for myself was write things down while they were clear. I was not doing this to hurt Brooke. I was doing it because Brooke had already told me, in plain language, that she intended to make people question my reliability. And a written record made on the same night, time-stamped, photographed, is not something a person can argue away by suggesting someone gets confused. Marlene, the party host, called me 2 days after the event. She had gotten my number through Elaine and she sounded careful and slightly uncomfortable in the way people sound when they feel responsible for something that happened in their home. "I want to check on you first," she said. "Are you all right?" I told her I was managing. She exhaled. "I need to tell you something," she said. "We have security cameras on the patio and the yard. They cover the drink table." My pulse moved. "I've reviewed the footage," Marlene continued. "It shows everything. The spill, the slap, and," she paused, "your sister picking something up from the grass and putting it in her bag." I closed my eyes briefly. "Marlene," I said, "has Brooke spoken to you?" She hesitated. "She called me yesterday," she said. She asked if I had cameras near the drink table. She asked what they covered. I let that sit for a moment. Brooke was not worried about witnesses to the slap. She could explain away the slap, she had already started doing that with the vision narrative. She was worried about footage of the object. Whatever it was, the footage of her retrieving it was the evidence she most needed to disappear. Elaine sent me a text 2 days after our coffee meeting. "The wife has noticed," it said. "She saw photographs from the party circulating and she is asking questions about your sister." I read it twice and felt my stomach tighten in the way it does when something moves faster than you expected. "Does she know?" I texted back. Elaine's reply came after a few minutes. "Not the full picture yet. But she is smart and she is looking. It won't take long." I put the phone down and sat with what that meant. Brooke had spent months keeping 2 lives running parallel without them touching. She had a version of herself that existed for our family, for the party circuit, for the image she maintained carefully and expensively. And she had a separate version that ran underneath it, involving a man who belonged to someone else, and a secret that was apparently small enough to fit in a clutch bag but large enough to be worth slapping her sister over in front of 40 witnesses. The wife finding out was not something I had caused. I had spilled a drink. Brooke had made every other choice herself. I was not going to carry her consequences. Sunday dinner at my parents' house had been a family ritual for as long as I could remember, and my parents maintained it with the kind of commitment that suggested they believed the ritual itself created the thing it was supposed to represent. Brooke came that Sunday with her hair done and her smile in place, and within 10 minutes of sitting down she looked across the table at me and said, in her warmest voice, "Natalie, I'm sorry if you took what happened the wrong way." I set my fork down. My father looked at me with a careful expression that meant please do not do what you are about to do. My mother reached toward the bread basket. Brooke added, "But I do think you owe me an apology for spilling on me. In front of everyone." It was mortifying. My father nodded slowly. My mother said nothing. They were both waiting to see if I would fold the way I always had. I looked at Brooke steadily. "No," I said. The table went quiet. Brooke's smile stayed in place but her eyes sharpened at the edges. My father said my name, a warning wrapped in 2 syllables. I am not apologizing, I said, for being hit. Brooke recovered fast, she always did, and tried a different angle. Her voice shifted from warm to slightly wounded, the tone designed to make other people in the room want to defend her. You're acting like I committed some crime, she said. My father made a sound of agreement. I touched my cheekbone. You slapped me, I said. In front of guests. And then you told people my vision condition is an act. Brooke laughed, a short, brittle sound. I said you lean on it, she said. Which is different. I said nothing. Brooke leaned forward. You know what your problem is, she said. Her voice had dropped the warmth entirely. You've been coddled since the medical thing. Everyone treats your defect, like it makes you special. The word landed in the middle of the table and nobody moved. My mother's hand stopped over the bread basket. My father went very still. Brooke realized what she had said and her expression shifted quickly toward damage control. But the word was already in the room. My mother looked at her with an expression I had not seen before, not anger, not defense. Something uncertain and slow, like a person who has started questioning something they had not meant to examine. Elaine met me again 4 days after the party. She had texted asking to speak in person, and her message had the careful tone that means the information is heavier than a text can hold. She sat across from me and spoke quietly. Patrick is not just someone your sister met socially, she said. He has connections in her industry. Introductions, referrals, professional leverage. Brooke has been using the relationship to advance her career. I stared. For how long? Elaine looked at her coffee. At least 18 months, she said. His wife has been suspicious for most of that time, but he was careful. The party was the first time they were in an overlapping social setting with people from both sides of their lives. I sat with that. Brooke had not just been hiding a relationship. She had built an entire parallel structure on top of it. Career moves, social positioning, future plans, and the small item on the grass was part of that structure. A ring. Meant for Brooke. From a man still legally married to someone else. My sister had slapped me in front of 40 people to protect not just a secret but a whole architecture of deception she had been constructing for nearly 2 years. My aunt called me 3 days after the Sunday dinner. She opened carefully, the way she always does when she is relaying something she is not sure she should relay. Natalie, she said, I've been hearing some things. I waited. Brooke mentioned to a few people that you've been having some difficulties, my aunt said. Since the medical event. She said you sometimes misremember things. That you can get turned around. My chest went tight. Turned around, I repeated. She said you've been under stress, my aunt continued. That you imagine things sometimes being more serious than they are. I took a slow breath. This was the campaign Brooke had told me she would run. This was what be careful had meant on the phone. She was going through the people around me and quietly, gently, with great warmth and apparent concern, building a case that my account of events could not be trusted. I have a neurologist, I said to my aunt, keeping my voice level. I have documented records of my condition and my capabilities. I have photographs taken the night of the party. And I have multiple witnesses. My aunt was quiet for a moment. Witnesses, she said slowly, like the word surprised her. Yes, I said. Brooke forgot about the witnesses. A message request appeared on a Tuesday morning from a name I didn't know. Hi. My name is Dana. I think we need to speak about your sister and my husband. I sat with the phone for a long moment. This was the wife. The person on the other side of everything Brooke had been hiding. I had not contacted her. She had found her way to me the way truth eventually does when enough people carry pieces of it. We met at a corner cafe booth. Dana looked exactly like someone who had spent months being nearly certain about something devastating and had finally decided she would rather know. Were they together at the party? She asked. Her voice was controlled in a way that took visible effort. I told her what I had seen. I mentioned the object in the grass. I did not share what Elaine had told me, that was Elaine's. Dana listened without interrupting. When I finished, she set a small folded receipt on the table. I found this at home, she said. It's from a jeweler. What was purchased was not for me. My stomach dropped. Every piece of that night clicked fully into place. Marlene called me on a Wednesday and her voice had the careful energy of someone who has found something they were not looking for. We've been cleaning up the patio area, she said. Going through the furniture and planters. She paused. We found a small box under the drink table. Between the legs of the table and the wall planter. It must have been kicked or slid under during the party. My heart was beating faster. What kind of box? Marlene's voice was measured. A ring box, she said. Small. Dark blue. There's a jeweler's logo on the outside and a folded note inside. She read it to me slowly and carefully. Soon. Don't tell her yet. The air went out of the room. The object Brooke had reached for in the grass had not been fully retrieved. The box itself had slid further than she realized in the dark and the chaos. She had picked up whatever had come loose from it, the note, maybe, or the receipt. But the box had ended up under the furniture and sat there for days while Brooke believed the evidence was gone. Marlene, I said. Please keep it somewhere safe. She said she already had. I sat my parents down the following evening and told them everything. The affair. Elaine. Dana. The ring box under the table. The note. I laid it out plainly and without drama, the way I had written it in my records, factual and chronological. My mother's face went white by the third sentence. My father stood and paced to the window, standing there with his back to us before turning around. This is insane, he said. Brooke wouldn't do this. I looked at him steadily. She slapped me in front of 40 people to keep anyone from looking at what fell from her bag, I said. That was not nothing. My mother was crying quietly, the kind that comes from being genuinely overwhelmed. Why would she do all of this, she whispered. I felt the familiar pull. To soften it, to make it easier for them. Then my father said, voice tight, you cannot be the one who takes this public. Whatever Brooke has done, you are not going to be the person who destroys your sister. And even with everything laid out in front of them, they still wanted me to be the one who carried the silence. Even now. Even after all of it. Dana told me she had planned a small gathering, her husband, shared friends, and through a carefully arranged invitation, Brooke. She told me as a courtesy, because I had been honest with her. Brooke walked in the way she walked into every room, warmly, already performing. She saw me and her expression flickered for half a second before the smile came back wider. Dana waited with the patience of someone who has thought through every word. When everyone was seated, she placed the ring box on the table in front of Brooke. Brooke stared at it. Then she laughed lightly and said she didn't know what that was. Dana unfolded the note and read it aloud. Soon. Don't tell her yet. The room went completely still. Brooke reached for a pivot. She said my name. She used the word confused. She started to say blind and caught herself mid-syllable. Dana looked at her steadily. Don't, she said. Don't use her condition to protect yourself in this room. And Brooke, for the first time in front of people whose opinions she had spent years carefully managing, had nothing. No performance worked. No smile landed. She simply stood there, and the room watched her stand there, and no one moved to help her. Brooke came to my apartment 2 nights later. Not crying. Not soft. She knocked once and walked in. Her face was tight with the specific anger she reached when she felt wronged. You destroyed everything, she said. I stayed near the door. I spilled a drink, I said. You made every other choice. Her jaw set. You talked to Dana. You talked to Marlene. I told the truth, I said, to people who asked me questions. Her voice rose. You've always been jealous. You used the vision thing for attention, and when that wasn't enough you burned my life down. I felt the old pull, deny, smooth, shrink. I let it pass. No, I said. I couldn't stand being slapped and then told I imagined it. Brooke called my mother right there in front of me, crying immediately. My mother called me 2 minutes later. Did you? She started. Yes, I said. I told the truth. A long pause. Then my mother spoke in a voice I had never heard from her, low and stripped of its usual careful management. She hit you, Natalie. Not a question. A reckoning. The first real crack in the only shield Brooke had ever had. Brooke's secret ended the way real things end, not in a single moment but slowly, through the quiet withdrawal of people who had believed her version and now believed a different one. Dana made decisions about her marriage that were hers alone to make. Patrick chose self-preservation. Brooke found herself without the relationship, without the professional connections it had carried, and without the social positioning she had built over 18 months. Invitations thinned. The people whose respect she had worked hardest to earn were the same ones who had stood in Marlene's backyard. My parents called more. They tried to rebuild through meals and check-ins and conversations that circled the edges of apology without landing. I was patient with it. But I told them clearly, I would not be asked to minimize what had happened. I would not be managed around Brooke's recovery. When they were ready to say the actual words, I would be ready to hear them. Brooke screamed, "Are you blind?" to cut me down in front of people. She had no idea the only thing I had ever been blind to was how long I had deserved better. I could see it clearly now, with whatever vision I had left. That was enough. It had always been enough.